And we're back. All right.
In person.
In person.
In
so,
person.
let's talk about school more, because school's fun.
School, high school, grade school. I would walk when we were living in, after we sold our house and we moved into an apartment over Grandpa's. Apartment was vacant. This was over the store, which worked out beautiful. Uncle Elliot lived with us. We lived, my two brothers, myself, Mom and Dad, and Uncle Elliot with one bathroom.
Again.
And it was a railroad flat, but it was very nice. It was roomy. And like you say, if you don't compare it to anything, what do you know?
Mm-hmm.
And my girlfriend Sylvia lived next door. Sylvia's brother was Uncle Elliot and my dad's partner in business.
Is that when you
He was
first
an
met
engineer.
Sylvia?
I met Sylvia when I was 5.
Oh, God.
Yeah. And they were quite young. Frank and Elliot were best friends. They grew up together. And Uncle Elliot is 81 and I'm 74. So we were really like brother and sister. I always adored him. He still is. He's a wonderful part of everyone's life. He's helped everybody. But my parents had a 12-inch Dumont television set. One of the first to have television. And
Black and white or color?
Oh, black and white.
Oh, man.
If you were rich, you had a screen that had like a paper over it, like a film, and it had like the blue sky and the green for the grass, and it made it look like color TV. We weren't that rich.
Mm.
But anyway, on certain days they had Milton Berle on, which was a show with comedians and a variety show. Was the first one. It was a Texaco show. Well, our family watched that. We watched the Goldbergs. Mom and I went to see the movie Yoo-Hoo, Mrs. Goldberg. And in those days, you never called anybody because you had to pay by the call, and it was expensive.
By the call or by the minute?
By the call. And probably by the minute as well. So anyway, we lived here, and Sylvia lived next door, and it was an attached wall. And we would get something like a metal object to like bang, and then we'd look out the window. And that's why that Yoo-Hoo, Mrs. Goldberg, looking out the window, because that's what people did to communicate.
Wow, it's pretty.
Yeah.
We get phones.
Yeah, and Sylvia's mother would call me, and she would say, "Honey, come over." She was a wonderful cook. That's how I learned to cook. And she'd say like she made this, that, and the other thing, and I would go over there. But that's how you communicate, like this. And not only that, but there were codes, because it was for Uncle Elliot. It was, I think for Uncle Elliot was 3, and I think mine was whatever. You know who they were calling.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah, that's unbelievable. You never called anybody that was local.
So were the phones one of those?
Oh, the phones were like the old-fashioned dial phones.
Were they the ones
with
that
a long, yes, a long receiver.
Oh, God.
And I'll tell you a quick funny story. In those days, it was much cheaper to have a party line. We didn't have a party line, but Mama had a party line. My grandmother had a party line. And Oma had a party line. So it was like 1/4 cheaper. And Mama was on the phone talking to her sister. And they were talking about her sister-in-law. Well, for some reason, her sister-in-law got interrupted into their conversation, but they didn't know it, and they were like talking very negatively about her, about an incident in the family at an affair. And at the end of the conversation, she butt in and she said, "I hear everything that you're saying, and don't call me anymore." She hung the phone up.
Oh.
It got connected. So after that, I said, you know what, on a party line, you never know who's on the other line.
That's very true.
Yes, right. But people were cordial. You know, if you were on the phone, then they'd pick it up and they'd hang up. You didn't know who was on the other.
Yeah.
You know, there was no form of ID, but it wasn't somebody that was like your next door neighbor.
Wow.
That's how it was. We didn't have all this Twitter and jitter and stuff that you have today.
That's crazy techno. What was... So, Technology was a little bit different. It wasn't terribly different, but
There
what was
wasn't
your
any
view?
technology in those days.
What did you think the future was going to be like when you were young?
I don't think we ever thought about the future. You know, you live for the moment. When you're young, when you don't know about anything, you don't think about it. It's the unknown.
That's true.
That was it. You know, things were not known, and
Yeah. So
but
how,
I do remember very vividly being very frightened when they had air raids. Because those
Speaking of-
loud whistles. And then they had air raid wardens that would go around to people, and if they had lights on, they would ring the bell.
What a great job.
Yeah, they had air wardens that used to, you know, like each block had somebody that was in charge. Because it was crucial. They didn't have the technology, radar and stuff like they have today
Yeah.
to detect enemy planes.
Mm-hmm. So what was your favorite music way back when?
I was raised with classical and very ethnic music. I love ethnic music. I still do. Used to listen to my grandparents, the Yiddish Hour, and it was on like Saturdays, and it was very, you know, beautiful music. It was all melodic music, something like Fiddler on the Roof would be.
Yeah.
You know, that very contagious and fun. Is it working?
Yeah, no. Speaking of
And my
Yiddish,
parents listened to classical music. We listened to a lot of classical music.
do you have
that's why I
any
love-
composers that you guys listen to?
Oh yeah, we used to Hungarian composers. My grandparents listened to, and then my favorite was I'm trying to think of what the name was. It'll come to me. I can't remember the name, but to this day, Monty's Shardish.
Monty Shard.
Yes, you have to listen to that. You have to see if you can get that music. It's
I'll make a
just
note.
so absolutely beautiful. Really beautiful. Still my favorite. We used to listen to that over and over. We had these big records.
Yeah, Monty Shardish is a Russian.
It's Russian.
Yeah, a Russian.
Yeah, it's just
guy.
beautiful. You couldn't get that music.
Yeah. So communism. So you lived through much of the Red Scare.
Well, that in school, and I came home and I told my parents, and my parents said, well, you know what, this is what they do. You know, she said, and I didn't even know what subversive was. You know, you weren't so worldly. You didn't watch news like you have today.
Yeah.
You know,
That's nice.
it was much more sheltered. Wasn't as liberal, let's put it that way.
Yeah. So do you remember
This girl,
disliking the communists much, or?
truthfully, you didn't give it too much thought. I always was very liberal, and I said, you know, whatever people are, they are. Who cares? It's still the same people, whatever their beliefs were. My grandparents, of course, were not communists, but they were very socialistic because this is where they were raised. Socialistic country.
Yeah. They see what works and they grow.
Right, right.
Speaking of, so news. You just mentioned news. I mean, you didn't watch the news much, but
Well,
how did you get the news?
how we got the news was there were no CNN or anything like that, but every night they would have a news broadcast. And when you went to the theater, because movies were a very big thing. People would go to the movies. It was like 12 cents, 15 cents to get in. And my girlfriend Sylvia's mother, on Saturdays, they'd give dishes out if you went to the movies.
Huh.
And my girlfriend Sylvia's mother, they were a big family. So everybody that went got a dish. And I never liked the movies. I was not a movie person. Still not a big movie person. Just something I really want to see. I just won't go to waste time. And Sylvia's mother would beg me to go, honey, I need the dishes, or silverware they gave out. It was very funny. Like they'd give a spoon, just something to keep coming. And then after like 3 months, you'd have a whole set of dishes. Yeah.
It's the most
sounds-
bizarre thing I've
It
ever
is,
heard.
but that's what, and can you imagine kids coming home walking with a dish without a bag?
It's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, well, they got home. Be very careful. We were like 4 blocks from the movie theater.
can't imagine what the fights were like after knife night.
And another funny thing is that my grandfather, my mother's father, always gave me money because I was very thin. And my girlfriend Sylvia was thin and sickly when she was young. And my grandfather would give me $5 a week for Sylvia and I to go to the drugstore, and they had like a soda fountain, and we would each get a milkshake. And this would go on forever. And this one day, the owner of the store, who knew my grandparents, Mr. Malamet, he said, "Where are you getting all this money, honey, to buy all these milkshakes for you and Sylvia?" And I said, "From my grandfather." And one night, when I'm home, I answer the phone, and he says, "Oh, honey, it's Mr. Malamet. Is your dad there?" And I said, "Yeah." And my father gets on the phone, and I hear him say, "Oh, honey gets the money from her grandfather." Could you imagine being so interested? I mean,
Yeah,
it's a business person,
weird.
so whatever it is, he's getting business. But they were so concerned where I was getting the money from. Maybe thought I was selling drugs.
Oh yeah, classic 19.
Well, you never heard of drugs then, but anyway. So that was funny.
Yes, I mean, I think soda jerks or soda fountains, I think they're called, were.
And Stephen, when I used to come home from school, I would walk home from school. I went to PS 92 at the time. When I walked home from school, I came home lunchtime. It was like 5 blocks. And I would have lunch at my grandparents', and then I would come home from school at 3 o'clock. And every day, you didn't have big refrigerators in those days, and every day I would have to ask Grandma, it was the routine, what she needed from the store, and I would go to whatever store she needed, and I would bring the groceries home for her. She had scoliosis, and she was always ailing with something. She didn't do too well walking, so I would go to the stores for her, and they'd have a charge in every store. It was never a money exchange, and then they would write it down, and they would give you a receipt, what you bought. And that's what I did every day. And then at 5 o'clock, I would go with my girlfriend Sylvia's sisters, not Sylvia, because Sylvia was sickly. Her mother's brother was never married, and he owned like a mini supermarket in those days. And Uncle Elliot gave me the name Sterling Market. We were talking about it the other night. Uncle Elliot said, "Yes, Sterling Market." And we would bring him his dinner every day, and then he would give us groceries to take home.
Oh, man.
Every day. It was like part of your routine.
It's absurd.
Yeah, but you know what? That's what you did.
Yeah,
You didn't roam around and do nothing in those days.
Supermarkets didn't exist
It
back
was a
then.
mini supermarket. It was as big as, I'm trying to think of what proximity it would be to a store that you're familiar with. They were
7-Eleven
small.
size.
Yeah, exactly. A 7-Eleven size. Yeah, and they had like vegetables and meat and some cold cuts and, like a variety. It's like a mini supermarket.
So when you guys got your food, did you always go to like the mini supermarket, or did you go to the butcher?
No, we went to the A&P for our grocery shopping, but Sylvia's mother got all the food free.
Yeah.
And they were poor. Her husband had left her. But anyway, and I'll tell you another funny thing. Sylvia's mother was very, very avant-garde for her day. She was a nurse in her day. Not practicing anymore because she had all these children, but she was a very smart lady. And because Sylvia was so sickly, she didn't want her eating. I mean, who thought in those days about processed meat? They didn't want her having any processed meat. And we used to go across the street and get 25 cents worth of ham.
Mm-hmm.
And we went in the bathroom, we ate it in the bathroom. And her mother used to say, "What are you doing there?" And she'd bang on the door and open the door. "I know what you're doing, you're eating ham." So one day she was so angry, her mother, we took the ham, we threw it. There was a dumbwaiter that went into the garbage. That's what houses had. They had a dumbwaiter, and the garbage pails were there, and then you threw it down, and then you put the garbage out from the basement. And she went down the basement and she got the ham.
Oh.
And we came out of the bathroom and she laid it down. She said, "You liars, you both liars, there's the ham.
Oh.
Don't ever do that again." I mean, that was sinful.
Oh man.
Yeah.
What's
How innocent, right?
Yeah, I mean 25. That's a lot of ham.
25 cents.
I mean, if
It was probably a quarter pound. I don't know what it was. It was 80 cents a pound. It was 25 cents worth of ham.
I was thinking
was
like
a
a
few
movie
slices.
was like 14 cents. I'm like,
No, it was like
25
a few slices. It was like nothing with nothing.
Okay. So, did you have a favorite celebrity when you were younger?
Did I have a favorite? Like I said, I was not a very big. Yes, I liked Betty Grable. She was appearing in all these musicals.
Betty Grable.
Betty Grable. She was married to Harry James, who was a famous trumpet player and had a band. She was the Madonna of her day. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I'm looking at the Wikipedia page now. She was a pinup girl.
Yes. Yeah. Used to love to go see her.
And she was live acting as well?
No,
or
no.
Just films?
I saw Frank Sinatra live.
Really?
And I was never one of his fans. I didn't care for him, but my friends all loved him. A lot of people really loved him and swooned over him and everything. It wasn't my cup of tea.
Yeah. Did you? One thing that interests me a lot, because tonight I might be going to Yiddish poetry. Sounds interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Is you were really part, or at least saw the Yiddish Theatre movement.
I went to the Yiddish Theatre a lot. I used to go with my grandparents.
Yeah, and that was...
We used to go and we used to see, actually in this movie that Mom and I saw, they had excerpts of Menashe Skolnick and who was it that played Tevye? Zero Mostel.
Mm.
And I said, oh my God, I said, that's Menashe Skolnick. He used to appear in the Yiddish Theatre.
So you used to
It was
see
live
that?
theater, yeah. I used to go with my grandparents a lot. And believe it or not, I understood Yiddish in those days. I mean, I wouldn't understand it now, but I did.
Yeah.
We used to see Molly Pecan, yeah. And Papa used to go to the same restaurant all the time. He knew the owners. It was called Moshkowitz and Lupowitz. Yeah? And we used to
Jewish
have...
cuisine, I'm guessing.
Yes, yes. A lot of it was Hungarian. It was
Ooh.
really very nice and very upscale for those days, with tablecloths and napkins. It was right near the theater. It was very popular.
Yeah.
The good old days.
So you used to... The good old days, hey, these days are good too.
It was the good old days because there was nothing to compare it to.
That's true. What was
Larry
before?
King had a special. I don't think you saw it. It was about 6 months ago. And he went back to his roots in Brooklyn, not far from where we lived, and he lived over a store, and he said, we didn't know we were poor. I know we were poor now, he said, but we didn't know we were poor. Is the truth.
Ignorance is bliss.
That's right.
Yeah. What were some of the things you did for fun?
For fun, well, we take chalk and we play on the sidewalk and draw like what they call Plotzee.
Plotzee?
Plotzee, yeah. It was like you drew a rectangle with numbers and then you put the disc or whatever on the, you throw it and then you go with your feet and then end up on that number, and then the first one that got through all the numbers was the winner.
Is that like a Russian game?
Stoop ball, no. Stoop
I just
ball.
looked up Plotzee and it brought me to
Stoop
Russian.
ball, and then we
Wikipedia.
had skateboards. We had, I think someone's in the pool. You hear someone yelling out there?
I think probably Remy or Jillian.
Remy's not here.
Probably Jillian. or the neighbors. That'd be kind of weird.
Right.
Though.
We'd make out of milk crates, wooden milk crates. They would make like a skateboard. Put the wheels, old wheels on it, yeah.
That sounds completely unsafe.
No, then it had two handles. You know, you would build it. I never built it, but, you know, the family would build it. And you'd have these milk crates. And then when I was like, I'd say when I was about 5 to 7 years old, they used to have this Italian man that came around with a merry-go-round truck. And it was like an organ grinder.
What?
And he'd come around sometimes with a monkey. and the monkey would do tricks, and you'd give him money. It was just so weird. But this little merry-go-round was in a truck, and Papa would come out and treat my friends for not one ride, but he would say, give them 3 rides. And it would go through one song, and then we'd stop, and then we'd stay on. We were like, we can go on again, and this silly thing, but that's what they did. The summertime was fun.
Yeah, did you go down to Coney Island ever?
Oh yes, we went down to Coney Island a lot. My parents actually belonged to a club called Washington Baths. That's where I got my fungus from.
Mm.
And my mother used to say, honey, make sure you put your rubber shoes on to go take a shower. I used to lie. She said, did you wear your rubber shoes? Oh, yeah. But I didn't, and that's how I got this fungus on my toes. That's how many years I have it.
I know, it's
Terrible.
a long time.
But yeah, we used to go to the beach. Uncle Elliot belonged, my grandparents, my aunt, my uncle. And the men would play, we would go Saturday and Sunday. The men would play handball. And they would, we would bring lunch. It was very nice.
Yeah.
It went out onto the beach if you want to go to the beach, but it also had its own pool with the beach.
Did you swim back then?
No, I was never really a good swimmer. I mean, I could take care of myself, but I was not, it wasn't my favorite thing.
What was the fashion of bathing suits back then? That was just all like one pieces, right?
Yeah, one pieces and long.
Were they like made of cloth or
And
something?
very funny as opposed to what you wear now. The bathing suits for men, you're wearing these long, stupid, droopy drawers now. The men wore like little skivvies, like little tight.
Yeah, it's amazing. The guys' suits have gotten bigger while the female
Yeah.
suits have gotten significantly
Yeah.
smaller.
Yeah. And they used to go into the ocean there. It was fun.
Yeah. Do you remember was the amusement park around?
Yes, all the amusement parks are all there. Luna Park and Steeplechase, and I went on the Cyclone once. It wasn't my thing. I went on the parachute jump once. But it was all there. It was all contained. Nathan's was there.
Yeah. Did you like Nathan's?
Yes, Nathan's was wonderful. When Grandpa and I first got married, that was like a big treat. On Saturday night, we would take the car, take Deborah and Frank when we lived in Brooklyn, and we would ride over to Nathan's, and we would have hot dogs and chow mein sandwiches.
Chow mein?
Chow mein sandwiches on a bun.
What is a chow mein sandwich?
It's chow mein, and then they put it on a bun.
Like chow mein,
Very
like the
popular.
Chinese thing?
Yeah, it's right.
I've never heard
Right.
of that.
And I mean, if you really were flush with money, then you can get a corned beef sandwich or something. But it was
Ooh.
very, very good and very popular. It's still there.
Yeah, it's great.
Knishes.
They still have the annual hot
I
dog.
remember
eating
how much the
contest.
hot dog was, like 10 cents, 12 cents. It was
Once upon a time.
like free,
Yeah.
right? Now I think at the ballpark, what do you pay? $4 for a hot dog or something?
Around there. It's pretty terrible.
Yeah, but people make a lot more money then. When I married Grandpa, he was making $54 a week, and I was making $42 in the telephone company a week.
So what was your first job?
That was my first job. I graduated, and we were getting married in October. You could believe that.
I can't.
And we had Grandpa worked for Opa in the auto body, and I worked for the telephone company. At the time that I went to work, somebody in my building, we lived around the corner. We lived in the same building that my parents lived in before when they got married. And we lived in this apartment, and it was the same exact apartment that we had there. So I was, I don't know how old, 5, 6. And it was a walk-up. And I had Deborah there. And I used to keep my stroller and everything around the corner at my grandfather's store. And I was always so nervous walking up the steps all alone in those days,
Yeah.
walking up. And one day, a funny story is, Omar was teaching me how to make all these German dishes that Grandpa liked. and she taught me how to make kidney stew. Kidney stew.
With actual kidneys?
And we never ate that. Yeah, with cow kidneys.
Or
Pork kidney. I don't even know what it was from. But anyway, Grandpa comes in the building and he smells pee. Everything smells like urine. And as he got closer to the apartment and he opened the door, he said, "What the hell's going on in here? It smells like piss." But anyway, I said, "Oh, I made your favorite dish." Well, Oma didn't tell me how to clean the kidneys. So, of course, the whole thing went down the drain.
Oh.
It was so bad that Grandpa took the garbage right down, and I was making it for hours.
I expect that dish next time we meet.
Oh.
Some nice kidney stew.
I used to make tripe. He liked that, and the kids liked it.
Tripe?
Tripe is the lining of the cow's stomach.
Ooh, delicious.
And this family that lived next door to us from Italy, when we lived on 57th Street with Mom and Papa, this family, tripe was like a big treat. And they were, I guess, tenants. They bought the house. I guess they must have been there like 4 or 5 months. They had 2 daughters, like in between my age, that were my best friends, Anna and Etta. And the mother invited me over for dinner. And my grandmother's going, "Oh, you're going to have good pasta. They're good cooks and everything." And I go there, and she's got this fluffy white stuff in the middle, and she has meatballs and sauce. And they cut this piece for me, and I'm noticing what they do. So they cut it in little pieces, and then they eat it with the sauce. It was like blubber.
Really?
That's a good way. Anyway, I took it, and I went in the bathroom, and I threw up. And I said, "I think I have to go home. I think my mother wants me." I was so stupid. I didn't say that I didn't like it, And I went home and I told my grandmother what we were eating. And she said, "Oh, that's tripe. That's the lining of the cow's stomach." She said, "That's..."
Disgusting.
She said, "The Italians and the Germans eat that a lot." But then Oma made it. I didn't care for it in the beginning, but then I ate it. But the kids loved it. Ask Dad. Dad actually was one of his favorite dishes. Dad and Frank.
Should get that for him now.
Yes.
Tripe.
Tripe.
So did you have any boyfriends before you met Willy?
I had skating partners.
You had skating partners.
Yeah, I had skating partners that, I liked, but, Grandpa was like my really first boyfriend. First and only.
When did you guys meet?
I was 15 and a half. I would have been 16, I guess, in November, and it was in August. And, excuse me.